Welcome to KHM Today, your weekly resource for industry news and straight up fun. I am your host, Carolyn Orff, and today is a fabulous day for KHM Today. It is February 2nd, 2022. It is Groundhog Day, you guys, and Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow again, which means, you guessed it, 6 more weeks of winter. In Colorado, we're having our first snow day. So if you hear heavy feet above my head, you know, my children are home. So hopefully they're still out sledding for the day, but we have the most amazing show for you. Let's see, it is American Heart Month. So David Pritchard is with us today. And yesterday was the start of Black History Month. And we're going to celebrate both of these throughout the month of February with the most amazing guests. I can't wait for you guys to see who we have in store for you the entire month. But let's get this show started with two amazing women that I'm excited to share Team Talk with this week. Please welcome Wanda Thomas and Virginia Busceme from the education team here at KHM Travel Group. Hello, ladies.
Hello. Hi there. Hello.
Hi. It's been so long since we've been in the same room together with the holidays and travel. So welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Wanda's been on with me a couple times when we team talk via. This is your first time since the new year, and really the idea behind this session is in this segment is to just kind of share our thoughts and ideas about some of the latest headlines. So this week I was looking, and there's a new study that shows that 82% of people are ready to travel, which is fantastic news. In the same breath, you get the news article that says people are canceling their trips because of Omicron. So what are you seeing from your travelers that are out there?
She didn't call on one of us, Wanda, so I guess one of us has to talk.
Go ahead and start, VA.
Well, Carolyn, my clientele tend to be like me. They have gray hair. And I have some who are not ready to travel at all yet, and they're just not willing to take that risk. I have others who are ready to go, and we either have been on trips or have some coming up. I've had a couple of new Disney clients who are younger, and they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to next month and it's departure day, we'll see.
That's always right. They're always ready to book, but are they actually ready to go? Wanda, are you seeing the same kind of differences?
I guess I'm seeing people that are a little bit more aware or more in tune with the requirements of travel now. It's almost becoming a normality. They are being prepared for what could happen. I keep preaching that message as well to my clients. But I've got a good mix of those that are going to be traveling soon. I've got a couple that are traveling within the next 15 days. But I would have to say the majority of my client base doesn't travel again for another 3 months or so. I've got some this month, but the majority start about 3 months later. So I think some people are, planning for the future, but kind of holding off a little bit right now.
So it's interesting that you say that they're more in tune with the requirements of travel, because the CDC put together another list of destinations that are no-goes. Yep, yes. I see the roll of the eyes.
Yes.
They're no-goes. And of course Mexico's on that list, which has been doing gangbusters in the last year because the requirements are so little, especially for us. And it also made the list of Travel and Leisure's 2022 destinations. So we've got makes the hot list, and we've got the CDC saying don't go. Is anyone listening anymore? No. Or are we just doing whatever we feel
I don't think so.
Right? Are we listening to our inner selves as opposed to someone else at this point?
I think that people have heard so many differing opinions that it's very difficult for them to take any of them seriously.
Yes.
Now, hopefully they take our opinion seriously whenever we give it, but I think it's hard for people right now to take it seriously.
I agree. I hear more and more people talk about the comparisons. So they are saying, oh my goodness, they've got everything on level 4 right now. Well, look at the US. I am really seeing those comments. So people are getting smarter about what's going on and thinking a little bit more in depth, I think, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think I know, at least I've heard from my clients, especially my families, who were nervous before to travel for fear of not just quarantine, but perhaps hospitalization in another country. With some of these new variants, they're not feeling that same sense of fear. It's, oh, they've got a cold. Okay, I can stay for 7 days. That's fine. The chances are of them having to go to a hospital are much smaller. So there's that weird comfort that is coming from this as well, and the willingness and the wanting to move past it, which I think is positive. So again, it's listening to your clients, it's understanding their threshold for fear, and what's really concerning them.
Well, Carolyn, I think, or one of the things I've said to my clients as well is, as always, you have to measure your own risk tolerance and think about what is the biggest impact if something were to happen to you. I understand someone, with a family, as an example, thinking about, as I've had some of my clients say, well, I've got 2 small kids. I can't kind of be away from them that long. If something happens, they're not with me, things of that nature. As I've told, some of my clients, I know you see me traveling, but all I've got is a 4-legged friend. I've got people in line to take care of him, per se. So you definitely have to think about your risk tolerances. And I think clients are doing that. I mean, I think they really are making plans.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they're thinking about their situation and how will it impact me.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm appreciating those conversations more and more, because I feel like in the past, perhaps there was this rush to book.
Yeah.
And we have to slow that down a little bit and say, okay, now I know you're ready and you really like this, and this, but let's just go back to what's your plan B? Yeah. Do you have a plan in place for work, school, childcare, whatever, should you need to extend your stay? And I prefer that term over quarantine. So it's leading to some really important conversations. I have to say that I'm enjoying it. And I used to be a full-on email girl, and now I feel like I'm picking the phone up more and more to have these conversations. So let's touch on one more thing before I let you guys go, because you're both coming back later. Luxury travel. We've seen this rebound so much faster than budget. Are you seeing your clients' willingness to spend more right now?
I am, to some extent. People want, as an example, more private transfers. They don't want to be, with a larger group, per se, that they're not aware of. But I'm definitely seeing them wanting more of an upgrade to their accommodations, as an example, so that they can feel more, if you would, at home, I guess is the way I'll say it, where they can kind of make things how they want it, wherever they're going to be. So I would definitely say that I have an uptick from that standpoint. I've seen a number of individuals that have made comment about their January numbers and how things have changed. I would pat myself on the back, but it really wasn't me. It's just the market. But, I looked at my trends, and, for January, I tripled my highest year January month. And I was just like, wow, from a trend perspective, it's never been what it was for this January. So people are definitely eager to travel. They're definitely making the plan to travel. And I'm seeing my average dollar has definitely increased. They're spending more on that travel.
Woohoo!
Yeah. I think that we have to consider what is luxury, because I agree with Wanda in that most of the people that I'm booking are wanting to spend more, not necessarily go to that luxury level, but gee whiz, we've been home for 2 years. We want to go, and we want to do it right this time. So yeah, I'm seeing some of that.
That's an excellent point.
That's an interesting point, right? Because it's not necessarily that they want a higher end product. They're just willing to pay more for something that maybe offers a little bit more space or a little bit more privacy, or something that's done on their own. So a really good point. You guys, we're going to see you back here in just a little bit for some more segments, but thanks for joining Team Talk.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. You guys, I am beyond thrilled to welcome our next guest. He was the first Black student at the University of Southern Florida, the first Black professor at the University of South Carolina. He has been a leader in many college departments of hospitality and tourism, and he currently serves as the marketing director for Travel Professionals of Color. Please welcome Dr. Ernest Boger. Hello, doctor.
Hi there. How are you, Carolyn?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us. I think you have to click your webcam request.
Okay,
There you are.
there I am. Okay, great. Here we
Thank you
are.
so much for being here today and helping us kick off Black History Month. You know, TPOC, which is Travel Professionals of Color, is celebrating its 20th year, which is amazing. And the vision behind this organization is to support, assist, and spotlight travel industry professionals, destinations, and multicultural tourism for African Americans, Hispanics, Asian Americans, and Native Americans. That's a big mission. In what ways does the organization fulfill this mission?
Well, primarily, we exist as a forum for communication. And by being here as a forum for communication, our members are able to share their experiences with each other and hopefully turn that into a profit generating activity. Also, we facilitate professional development. We will normally have at our conferences and at other times the exams for the CTA and CTC. I believe you're CTA, right?
I
Yeah,
am.
somewhere. So those are the two things. One, providing a forum for communication that will facilitate the greater good, and providing opportunities for professional certification. I think those are the main two.
Was there something, usually when an organization comes about, it's because there's kind of this hole, and there's this need for change. Was there any, one thing or two things that were kind of happening in the industry that you felt that there was this hole and this need for TPOC?
Yeah, well, about 20 years ago, probably 5 or 6 independent travel agents were involved with the cruise lines and the airlines and the destination marketing organizations, and they never saw anyone that looked like them. And essentially, they were the only ones at the table, and so they kind of coalesced. Primary Betty Jones was the energizer, and she said, look, we'd be much better off if we could speak with one voice in these forums. And they banded together, formed TPOC, and it's grown from about 6 people to around 250 today, something like that. So you know how it is in this country. If you don't have an advocacy group in the United States, period, then you have no voice. One person can do very little, and of course that's the whole existence for KHM as well. So it's kind of a miniature version of KHM, in that there did not seem to be the voice. The African American cultural heritage voice was not there in most cases, and so TPOC stepped in to fill that void.
So in our email exchange, you made an interesting comment that piggybacks on what you've just said. That you must come to the table or you might not be on the menu. And I just think that's it's so important. But for those that are watching, will listen to this later through our podcast, how do you get a seat at that table?
Well, of course, so we're talking about business, so the bottom line has to be the metrics. In the beginning, people might be interested in saying, well, it's nice to have some diversity there. We haven't seen any people of color there, so let's invite a couple in or something like that. But at the end of the day, you have to demonstrate your financial viability. And so TPOC is able to say that, listen, our 250 members include 50 very active agents who generate this amount of revenue on an annual basis, and we are bringing in people from this particular demographic that spends so much. So it's all about being able to justify your financial viability. You might get in the door because someone thinks it's nice or interesting, but you can only remain there if you are, generating the kind of, dollars that
Right.
is required to keep you there. Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned the conference that TPOC puts on. It's the 20th anniversary. Can you share with
Mhm.
us a little bit about what agents can expect if they attend?
Absolutely. It's going to be essentially a kind of an expanded fam tour, really, of the South Carolina Low Country. It's going to run from May the 10th through May 15th or 16th. And it's going to include Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, South Carolina, Beaufort, South Carolina, and all three of those destinations will be included. Will be actually 2 hotel destinations over that time period. So it's going to be a great opportunity to experience the cultural heritage of the South Carolina Low Country. It's going to include naturally the visits to some historic sites. It'll include some food. It'll include some folklore, some museums, and really what we're in dialogue now with KHM. We're in dialogue with KHM to perhaps package the whole conference as a advanced boot camp type experience for KHM members in African American or Black cultural heritage tourism. It's not a done deal yet, but we are in dialogue, and we're hoping that if all goes well, perhaps 20 or 30 or 40 of the 4,000 KHM members will actually attend that as an educational piece. It'll be fun. We say we are in an industry of fun, and so we try to help people find their joy.
Well, and it's not only fun but educational, and I think that's so
Mhm.
important. I think many of us, we love the fun, but you reach a point where we're learning about different cultures and heritage, and is equally as important.
Absolutely. And let me say too, the TPOC, while it stands for Travel Professionals of Color, it's for anyone who is really interested in reaching that particular market niche with respect to travel and tourism. So if you want to develop that market, doesn't matter what you look like or what your background is, if that's your interest, then you will be able to learn how to do that through TPOC. If so that's what we want to get clear, because sometimes people say, well, what's that got to do with me? Well, if you're interested in making money, from that market, then TPOC is a good way to establish a network. And I would say more than anything else, develop the sensitivities that one must have if one wants to reach any particular niche market. You've got to know how those people, so to speak, or that market thinks and acts and responds. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. So just want to make that clear as well.
Thank you. So I read a piece that you were featured in where you essentially said that we need to make ourselves the experts in pivoting. And we've kind of chuckled about that word over the last year because, that's all we seem to have been doing. Do you have suggestions or words of encouragement for agents who, felt like they could do that for the first 6 months of the pandemic, right? We laughed, we're pivoting, we're doing this, we're going to be great at this. And now 2 years later, they're like, okay, seriously, I'm exhausted. I'm feeling defeated. I don't want to pivot anymore. I want to go back to what I was doing, but with a little bit more insight. And so do you have words of advice for agents that are just kind of at that tipping point?
Huh. Well, I mean, there's no real magic there. This is the reality of the fact that the travel tourism industry is a marathon, not a sprint. Sometimes that marathon goes faster than others. Right now, we're not in a great place, but we just simply have to take the long view. And I know they've heard that before, but there really is no magic in it. Try to use this time to do something different, that will make you stronger when you come out on the other end. So, work on a foreign language, learn to play golf, or, develop some recipes or something like that that you can say, well, yes, there was a pandemic. Yes, we had some delays. People are not traveling, but in the meantime, I made myself better by doing something or the other. In fact, that's exactly what's happening with college students. As we come out of the pandemic, companies are saying, okay, well, yeah, so what did you do? How did you use this time to make yourself better? And college students are taking that seriously. So hopefully they're coming out with more preparation. So I would say the same thing for agents. I mean, it's tough when you've got to, have some revenue coming in to put bread on the table, but it is a long run. Um, Travel is resilient. It will come back. So I just keep the faith, and put some prayers up too, and a man upstairs, whatever you can do to keep yourself going,
Yeah.
do that.
I was impressed by the agents that were posting about all the different educational things they were doing, the sourdough
Mhm,
starters they were
mhm.
doing, the knitting, the art projects, all of those things to
Absolutely,
keep their brains moving. And I have
absolutely,
to say, I was
absolutely.
one that without this forum and without the education team, I was the one that was just binge watching Netflix. I was doing nothing productive with my
Mhm,
own business. I'm straight up honest about that for a good 6-8 weeks. But
mhm,
it was
mhm.
this piece where I felt like my energy and my time went into, and that's what's helped sustain the sanity for me.
Good, 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 good.
So, well, you have had many firsts in your life. You are sort of retired-ish now.
Yeah, sort of.
What do you have in mind what your next first will be?
Hmm. Wow, now that's a good one. Hmm. Hmm. Not sure. I really don't have an answer for that. Active retirement is kind of it. So I've not planned very many of those first, so to speak. They were just there, and I just kind of, at South Florida, it was the least expensive college I could go to. I could stay home and pay very little tuition and go to this brand new college that had just opened its doors. And so to me, that was a no-brainer. People will bring me back to talk about maybe ugly things that happened or whatever back in the day. There were no ugly things. It was just a matter of economics. And as a professor at South Carolina, they were looking for someone who had Caribbean experience. I had just completed 10 years of Caribbean experience, 5 years running a hotel and doing some other things in Jamaica, and 5 years in the Bahamas. And so they brought me in to be their, a Caribbean tourism person.
Yeah.
It just so happened I was the first African American there, and I guess they haven't had one since. But so I am not sure. Uh, I've put in almost 50 years in this industry, and I have all kinds of knowledge of just about everything you can imagine. So I expect someone will say, "Oh, here's a guy that can help us, with whatever." So I'm just waiting for that door to open, and you'll be the first to know when I walk through it.
Excellent.
Okay?
Excellent. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I know you have a busy schedule despite pseudo retirement, but we appreciate it, and we appreciate your thoughts and the work that you do for TPOC. And hopefully we can get that partnership going and see some agents take part in that 20th anniversary education piece that you guys
Yes,
have going.
indeed. Hopefully, you will be able to make that conference. Anita Pagliasso and
Yes.
Craig Freeman, they're already committed to attending. So we hope to have, again, a substantial KHM participation there. Thank you for having me. I'm going to stick on for the rest of the time here and see if I can learn some good stuff.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carolyn.
All right, you guys. as we continue to celebrate that Black History Month, Wanda Thomas, one of our own here at KHM, did the most incredible trip in November. It was a heritage trip to Ghana that I have been anxiously awaiting for her to come on and speak to you all about, because the pictures were incredible. And so we've had a little bit of discussion, and I was hoping she would come on and share with you all her experience as she had this journey in November. So welcome back, Wanda.
I'm coming. I was like, I'm waiting for my little pop-up. I'm coming.
She's coming. Well, you took this special trip, and I just want to start with, can you give us an overview of what that looked like for you and what the experience was like?
Oh my goodness. Well, it was quite an experience. I did Ghana in October, Kenya in November. It all came about from the standpoint of, as you said, heritage travel. I have an ancestry.com account. I actually located my father in my 53rd year, I think, 54th, 53rd year through that, and just kind of have been keeping up with that, of taking it to the next level. One of the things with all of the things that I guess have happened in our world over the last couple of years, I think heritage travel, especially for people of color, has really grown. We are trying to, for some way, kind of heal some of the trauma that has happened to us over the course of time, and trying to, for lack of a better cliche, get back to our roots. We'll put it that particular way. And so going to Ghana for me was a very important step. I mean, the year of return took place, I think, in 2020, I think. And that was where, in large, they welcomed us back home, basically back to Africa. And a number of celebrities, et cetera, took that opportunity to go back. And it kind of inspired a lot of people to start to want to go back. But it was very significant because, the door of no return is called the door of no return because as our ancestors went through that door, there was the thought, I will never return back to my homeland. And many of them never did. But during that event in Ghana, some of those slaves' graves were or bodies were brought back from their graves and are actually now buried in Ghana, back on the soil. So it's almost like a rekindling of your spirit to say that some of your ancestors did return back home, and then for us to make the journey home, it really opens up the door even more, that at least the children, the spawning from those ancestors are, taking the doorway to come back home. So now the door is no longer the door of no return. It's a way for you to actually walk back through and come back home. So it's great. It was really great.
Did you learn anything new from this experience that you didn't know before?
Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, there really was a lot. I mean, one of the questions I've always had, and I think I've even asked my mom as a young child, et cetera, as the history in Americas is, as we all know, generally for people of color, especially African Americans, there's not a thought of African Americans being immigrants. And in all intent and purposes, we are immigrants as well, at least our ancestors were. You think about the fact that, as you said, with heritage travel, the big boom has been Europe, Scotland, Italy, Ireland, things of that place. Well, there's an African side of that as well. We need to learn our history, our heritage, et cetera. And more people in general, I think, have been doing the 23andMe, the Ancestry.com, et cetera. And I think even 23andMe and Airbnb did some kind of partnership to help with that as well. And we have not seen as much of the diaspora, if you would, of us going back to Africa per se. And it's an important piece because I did, like, to your question, I learned so much. I think when my question as a child was, why our culture, why our people were put through the horrific things that we were put through. There's so many other ethnicities, genders, things of that nature, and you go, why us? I don't understand. And so that was a big question for me, even in the process. And so
did you get that answer?
to some extent I did it, and that's one reason I say people need to make the journey, or people call it need to make the journey, or anybody needs to make the journey to really understand how to put the puzzle together, because that helped me put some of those pieces together. And to answer the question, it was when I, in my mind, from the history books, from the American history books, the history we're told leaves out a big chunk. And so, at least for myself, the thought was, the British did this to us. Never had a problem with the British because I love going, to Europe. But with that statement, the British did it. Well, once I got there and really immersed myself in the culture and talked to the historians that were there, it really opened my eyes to say that some parts of it was just a normal part of capitalism and how things grew out of what was already in existence. And what I mean by that is, the Danes, the Portuguese, the British, there were multiple cultures, the Austrians, the Germans, etc., they went to Africa to reap the resources, the gold, the land, the oil, things of that nature. It was more about the money, the dollar, of cultivating those natural resources. And when they went there, as it would be in olden times, you're conquering things. So, I'm going to war with somebody, I'm conquering their particular land. Those war prisoners may become slaves, etc. Some of that happens. Of course, even internally from the standpoint of African tribes, as it would be with Indians, etc., you have tribal wars. Tribal wars, you overcome a tribe, you take your warriors or your, you know what I'm trying to say, I can't get it out. You take those prisoners, there you go. You take those prisoners of war, they become slaves to your tribe. Well, that was happening just as a part of how war took place. So there were some Africans that actually had slaves because of that process, okay? Well, then as the Danes, the Portuguese, etc., came in, they conquered certain lands, certain areas of Africa. They conquered those that already had slaves. Therefore, they maintained them as slaves. And then those that they conquered made more slaves, so forth and so on. So it went forward on a repetitive basis with each of the countries, if you would, that conquered certain areas. But of course, as it got to the point where, the African Americans were brought, or the Africans were brought to the States, it got to a point of true capitalism and understanding that the ability to really make, to grow the Americas, to really make it rich, as it were, was to have the work and labor of those that you didn't have to pay for per se. And here we are, we took, these individuals from their home in horrific situations and took them back to the Americas and for them never to return home. And so to your very first question, that story, that understanding helped me in some ways to understand that it wasn't just we went after you just for this. It was a part of, in some ways, not all of it, in some ways, it was a part of the natural process of warring and taking prisoners to some extent. I think it went another direction at some point, but that's kind of how it started. We'll put it that way. And so it was very, very educational, learned so much. It was very emotional. It definitely was something that pulls at your heart and helps you to, I don't even know why I want to say understand it better, but have a better view of the full picture. I'll put it that way.
When I was watching your pictures online, and so I struggled, we've talked about this. Heritage travel, when I watched what you were doing, it almost didn't, or ancestry travel, those words didn't accurately describe to me what I was watching. And so when I asked you, I'm like, well, what do you call this kind of travel? And you were like, well, heritage, ancestral. And I'm like, but that just doesn't seem deep enough. This seems to be on a whole nother level than just like a genetic profile. And one of the things you had said to me in a conversation, which I thought was just kind of that jaw open moment, was, in the United States, we believe the history of the African American community started with slavery.
That's correct.
And And that, like, right there to me says there's so much more to this than, so it's one of those things that you hate to almost put a label on, because it's so much deeper than I think any of us can even put into words.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, I look at my DNA profile and the makeup, as it were. And yes, some of it from a genealogy standpoint, a lot of my people came from that general area. I mean, a lot of my percentage or a number of my percentage came from Benin, Togo, from Ghana, the Bantu people in that particular area. But then at the same time, I've got a very large portion that comes from Scotland. So, you just never know. But so to some extent, it was understanding the history of my people from multiple levels, from a historical, from a genealogical standpoint, things of that nature. But you're right. It was so much more than just the genetics of the situation, but at the same time, very much about genetics to also understand that as a people, how strong, how resilient that we were and that we are for all that we have come through and overcome. It's amazing. I think about what the doctor just said about he didn't intend to go to be the first. He just ended up being the first. I understand that because, unfortunately, as we talk about American history, we as a people have never been really seen as a full person per se, and it's written in some law books that way, that we're not seen as a full person. So I think it becomes an interesting history to say we were the first African American, or the first Asian, or whatever. Well, why was that so critical? That's just my thought. Why is that so critical? What made it such a momentous scenario for us to be the first that you saw there? If we were really a part of the population, a part of the people, if there was cohesion, if we worked together as brothers and sisters, no matter the color, race, creed of our nature, why would that matter? I'm sorry, I'm getting goosebumps, getting me excited.
No, like I'm totally into this. We could go on for hours. I mean, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Was there something that you went into this trip thinking one way and it flip-flopped for you?
Oh yeah.
Like you had this pre idea of what something was, and yeah.
Absolutely. I think if we think about it as an example, if we think about what we see on the news on different occasions, some of the documentaries that are done, et cetera, I think that a lot of us would probably go, everything in Africa is destitute. Every child is malnutritioned and looks horrible, and there's no Western ways per se, things of that nature. Accra is a metropolitan, beautiful city with beautiful hotels, with great people that dress very nicely in kente or whatever they have on. So, and the nightclubs, the restaurants, oh my God, the food, food was awesome. But the restaurants, the food, everything was just amazing. So to your point, I went kind of with really not knowing what to expect. I guess that's really kind of how I'll say it. I wasn't sure what I was going to see. I had done some research, looked at some things, but again, I just wasn't sure. And I was pleasantly surprised at what I saw in Accra. But even when I went to Kumasi and to the eastern region and central region, oh my God, the land, the people, beautiful. And it also made me understand, or brought home even more, that you cannot classify someone's fortune and riches by a dollar amount or by an asset that they have or don't have. You cannot do that, because the people in these lands were so welcoming, so happy about just being alive, that you saw their riches in how they greeted you, brother, sister, no matter what you look like. Because in our group, we had multitude of races, creeds, colors, etc. And it was an embracing of you coming to the land and welcome home to Africa. No matter what you look like, they were welcoming you into the land. And no matter what your mind might have said, for instance, we went to the Masi tribe, and I took video of how they live. Well, the first thought of how we live in America, and I don't think, in some cases, we would even say some of our homeless live the way that they live. But at the same time, they did not come across that in any way they were not rich in something. They had land, they had cattle, sheep, they had wives, the children were running around having a good time. It wasn't what I would say my normal standards of living would be.
Right.
But at the same time, they were so rich in everything. They welcomed us. They were rich in their creativity and the things they were selling to us, etc. And they wanted to share their history, wanted to share how they operate, wanted to take you into their homes to see their homes, how they lived, how they did it. So that was really, that it just brought that home, that again, you cannot classify anybody's fortune and riches by any type of asset, whether it's monetary or otherwise. You just can't. You really can't.
Well, and it's important to know that. I know we experienced that when I took my kids to Thailand, and we went kind of in, gosh, I can't remember. We were with our guide, and we saw different tribes of people, and from the long neck to, just other tribes. And right, it's not the way I live or maybe want to live, but it's working for them, and it's their culture, and they're happy, and this is the way it is. And so it's not I need to respect, and I need to understand and listen, but no one's telling me I have to live this way.
That's correct.
They're living their way, I'm living my way, but let's understand and respect and learn about it. And I think that was, for my kids, that was so important for them to learn, because I think they came back with a greater understanding of others, right?
Well, like we say with travel,
be that way.
Absolutely. I mean, like we say with travel, that's a large part of travel, is opening your mind, broadening your horizons. Unless you get outside of that box, you will never have that understanding of how fortunate or misfortunate you are, and same for others. You've got to get out and be able to understand the riches that this world has to offer. And the only way you can really do that is through travel. No matter your race, creed, or color, you got to do that. And you learn so much about yourself as well as others. But even to your point about what I learned in Ghana, it brought home to me even more of an understanding of potentially other ethnicities, etc. In my trip there, I learned a lot about my ethnicity, but also I learned a lot about others and how we can or haven't or do come together at the same time. So it's a full circle learning. I mean, it really is.
I love it. And there's nothing else to say. That brought it all home. So thank you. Thanks for taking the time to share with us your experience. Absolutely. I am in awe of it, and I can't wait till the day where I'm able to experience something that was just as beautiful. So thanks for sharing.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
All righty. Oh my goodness. You guys, has it just been the most amazing day so far? I think so. And next up is one of our favorites, David Pritchard, here for American Heart Month. After all of that travel and heartwarming stuff, we need to make sure that our heart is staying in shape and stress-free despite the climate of travel. How are you? Happy New Year. Oh, I can't hear you.
There we go. There we go. Now you can hear me. Happy New Year as well, Carolyn. And thank you so much for having me on. What an inspiring lineup. Oh my man. Oh man.
I know.
I want to travel with Wanda, and I want to go clothes shopping with Ernest. I mean, he is, I'll tell you, he is so inspiring. His story is just so incredible. So
well, and I I love hearing about other people's experiences. And like I said, I had been watching Wanda's trip. She had 2 incredible months of travel, and I was so jealous. But to watch the pictures and kind of be able to feel the emotion through pictures, not even words, pictures, was really incredible from this side of the screen. But you are here today because it is also American Heart Month, which, you know, we love to tap into healthy habits throughout the course of the year on this show. So what is important to us, you know, this month to keep kind of some of that stress at bay? What do we need to do for our heart?
Well, you know, this month is always a very emotional month for me. It's every month we have campaigns around ALG that we highlight, but when Heart Month comes around, it's one of those months that I just kind of, it brings back a lot of not always great memories. In my family, heart disease runs very rampant. My mom passed away from heart disease, my dad. So it's something that it's really important to talk about. And when you talk about, especially African Americans, we talk about women, it's the #1 killer in those communities. So it is something. So if you, I kind of have to preference this before I speak. This might be a little different than what you're used to with me. Not that you got to hit a censor button or anything with me, but I've been doing this over 20 years, and I have learned I'm just not very quiet anymore when it comes to health and well-being. And when it comes to heart disease, I'm very loud and I'm very in your face because it is something that is so preventable, and it's something that we need to be aware of. Now, since I'm going to have a couple weeks with you and sharing some really incredible tips and strategies, I thought my tips today could be a little different, if you don't mind.
You bet.
And I'm throwing Carolyn off because I didn't give her a heads up on it. So, and I know that she likes to be organized.
I
so,
like bullet points.
But,
Yeah,
okay.
No, so
my mom died 9 years ago of heart disease, and I wrote a letter a year after she died. It was sort of my therapy, and so in the letter has gotten great traction. I put it out every single year because there's so much meaning behind it. I feel like it's her talking, especially to women. So I feel like that's the greatest way to kick off my Heart Month with you. So the title is called Recovery After a Broken Heart. They say you never really recover from a broken heart. It's always a part of your memories. It's in the fabric deep within you. And I can truly attest to this, as it's been 9 years since my mother died of congestive heart failure. And it's a day that lives with my memory each and every day. She was a strong and loving mother of 9 children. If she could live forever according to the size of your heart, the amount of love you give, surely my mom would have been immortal. As I reflect back on all the years growing up and seeing my mom battle and survive breast cancer, numerous physical ailments, but nothing worse than battling heart disease. It was one of the things that even with her mom's superpowers, she could not beat. And as a professional in the health field, I knew when she was diagnosed, the reality of her dying from this disease was real and would eventually happen, as there was no cure. But the one thing for sure that I know my mom would want to have her memory live forever is to talk about how she lived instead of how she died. And she would want me to tell all the moms, the dads, the women and the men the following: get your checkups. Don't skip your yearly physicals. It's a time for you and your doctor to connect and talk seriously about what's going on. Number 2, she would tell you, have self-awareness. Don't ignore the signs your body is telling you. Yes, it can be scary and it can be serious, but early detection is the key to living and preventing disease. Number 3, she would say, put yourself first. Now, my mom was not very good at this one. She put her children first, even up to her death. She thought of everyone before her, even if that meant it sacrificed her health. But I do believe my mom would say, if she could, if you want to show up more in the lives of the people you love, you have to put your needs before theirs. Fill your cup up first so everyone has their cup full. She would also say, don't stress the little things. I knew as a single mother, my mom dealt with tons of stress, but we as her kids never knew it. As a young boy, my mom was always happy, taking care of us with unconditional love. But underneath all that was a system that was being overburdened with stress, and it affected her heart. She would want all of you to create a support system. Talk with your family and friends, connect with people, take a break and give yourself permission to ask for help. And then lastly, she would tell you to have love and gratitude. In difficult times, my mom could find gratitude in anything. She adored her kids, her grandkids, her great-grandkids, but more anything, she adored life. She was constantly present, always grateful for time with people, and also a nice glass of rosé. So as reflect on this anniversary and February Heart Month, use the wisdom of an 81-year-old mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, and see where you can just add 1 or 2 things that could add to your life. So sounds like great medicine to me.
I couldn't agree more with the tips and the sentiment. I think that as individuals and as moms, a lot of times we put everyone else first, and the other downfalls, we don't ask for help a lot of times. We don't ask for help, and I am the queen of that, right? I can do everything. I never say no, and leads to sleepless nights, missing workouts, maybe grabbing food I shouldn't grab, as opposed to some of the healthier options. But all we can do each day is take these little nuggets of information and try and work on them slowly but surely, right? It's not an overnight thing.
And especially with heart, it's easy quickly to go right to the nutrition and fitness and those type of things. It's sort of the default response. But what we're seeing, especially in this last year and a half, is if we're not taking care of our mental well-being, if we're not taking care of our stress, if we're not, the greatest thing about the travel industry is the community that we have, right? And KHM has such an incredible community. And you think about just, who you can go to for help. And that's where we need to start. Because once we lay that foundation, then we can work with the diet, we can work with those other things, but we don't necessarily need to start there every time we think of a disease. Let's think of those other things that can empower you and lift you so that you can have that support system.
Right. And we do, the advisor community does have support. It's an incredible network. And, I thank you for bringing that to our attention. I thank you for reading such a personal letter. It's amazing. And we're looking forward to seeing you each week in the month of February to share more insight. But today, gosh,
Well, there's that much I could have done to up your other guests. So I figured I'm going to bring a love letter out from my mom. And I think that I at least could be part of the conversation. And I will, just looking ahead for the next few weeks, we are going to unpack some strategies and some tips and some things that everyone can take with them at work, at home, travel, to really enhance their heart healthy lifestyle.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing something so personal. You guys, is this a way to kick off February or what? Like, I'm nervous for the rest of the month at this point. Today has just blown me away. Thank you, David, so much for being here. It was great to see you.
Nice to see you. Be well.
All right, you guys, and our next guest, you guys, we got one more. Hang with me here because this is a great follow-up. We have had so many guests on the show, from Princess talking about Medallion class and does it work, the importance of it for the guest, and our own Virginia Ann Busceme was on. I want to say it was the Regal Princess, but I feel like I'm incorrect on that. Just a couple weeks ago, and she is here to end the show on a high note with our user review. Hi.
Hi there. Boy, it's tough to follow.
It's really been just incredible, but this is good. This is user-friendly information. We needed to end with with a tangible piece and a follow-up to all of our guests who have just raved about this. And now we have a consumer who happens to be an agent. All right, give us the skinny on this. Is it really as good as we think it is?
For the most part, I would agree that it is. This is my little medallion. We did not buy any of the extra jewelry or anything. It's just on a lanyard that they sent with it. It was pretty incredible to be able to put this on and to walk into the cruise port and they know who you are. And we were checked in, I don't know, a minute. We had to do some clicks on a screen, but other than that, we had done all of our check-in ahead of time online, and so it was painless. We left the hotel and were on the ship in our stateroom in less than an hour.
Well, and I remember we were on a team call and you were sitting there and there was a knock on the door with your cabin steward bringing you a glass of champagne. And at that point I was like, well, something has to be going right with this because she's in the middle of a work call and someone's bringing her a glass of champagne.
Yes, the cabin steward knew we were in the room. She could tell.
Did you find it intrusive at all, or did you find yourselves constantly on your phone, which is a big complaint for people, right? You're on vacation, you don't want to be on an app all the time. Did you find yourself kind of getting into the play piece of it?
I think it does require you to be on your phone, and depending on how tolerant you are of that when you're on vacation, you may like it a little more or a little less. I'm used to it. I've used my Disney experience. I'm on my phone all the time. So that part didn't bother me too badly. I knew I could just put my phone down if I needed to and not worry about it. The things that I really liked about the Medallion were things that did not require the phone. And that was, I'm walking down the hall and my door unlocks. So I'm not fumbling with the key. I'm not trying to hold up this Medallion to anything. You get within the proximity of, I don't know how many feet, but you get close and your door just unlocks. And your little screen, you have a digital screen outside your room, and it welcomes you back and tells you your door is open. So that part, John and I both really liked.
And it sounds like the cabin steward knows when you're there, so perhaps there isn't any bothering, you know, if it's 8 o'clock in the morning and she or he still sees that you're in there, perhaps they're not knocking on the door wondering if they can come in and clean. It's just
That's right.
They're still there, let's not bug them.
Yep. And we're cruisers who enjoy staying in our room in the mornings. We order coffee from room service, maybe a little breakfast, and usually we'd have cabin stewards knocking on the door because they want us out of there. They want to clean the room. And we did not have that. Actually, we would stick our head out sometime and say, you can come in and do what you need to do. Yeah, we're in here, but you know, don't worry about it. Just come on in. Yeah.
Did you use any of the features that had you like ordering drinks or anything like
that?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
How did that work? Like, how do they find you?
Well, the Medallion knows where you are. I'll say that I mostly used it when we were in the room.
Okay.
And it would come up on the little app. It had a box and it would tell you where it thought you were. And, you know, as long as it was close, then okay, this will go. And I really enjoyed ordering food on it. We did order drinks one time out on the deck, and they couldn't find us. And I could not get mine to work because it thought I was a deck higher than we actually were, but John's knew where we were. So I got on his, ordered our drinks, and then he got a text message that said, raise your phone in the air so that we can find you. And we were kind of hidden back a little bit. So I took his phone and went out close to the rail and was out there holding my arm up with the phone. And sure enough, I could see the waiter, and he saw us and waved, and
oh, that's
then it
funny.
was fine. But it wasn't quite as good as John Chernesky led us to believe in that respect.
It's going to get there. I think it'll get there. But I would imagine that would be hard if with everyone around on the pool deck. Was there anything that you looked at and you were like, yeah, not loving this feature?
There were a couple of things. Not so much features, but it was slow.
Okay.
You would go in to do an order and you would really begin to think the thing was frozen. You would think the app was frozen because it would take so long for it to go ahead and update and for you to get it would have the submit button grayed out. And until it went through everything that it needed to go through, you couldn't hit submit. You couldn't click on that. So I found the slow response to be not definitely detrimental to it. And it would sometimes really would just freeze up. And the app would close and you'd have to reopen the app and start over on whatever you were doing. So we didn't care for that. The other thing was what I was just talking about, being out on the deck and you're expecting them to know exactly where you are. Well, it's not quite that exact. Yeah. You may get that email that says, hold your phone in the air.
What are you wearing?
Yeah.
I just read this morning that they're now going to be, there's certain ports of call that will actually take the Medallion as payment because you have your credit card linked to it, which I think is a kind of a neat feature. So that'll be interesting to see how that rolls out. But it sounds like from your experience, there were definitely pros to it, a few cons that might be able to be fixed by, either an update of the app or some stronger Wi-Fi, which at sea is somewhat of a challenge, but it sounds like, it was okay.
I want to tell you one thing that was a real surprise and was just fantastic. We were celebrating our anniversary, and I had entered it as a celebration in the reservation. I'd entered it under John's name. Well, he stepped up close to the monitor out in one of the lobbies, and this fireworks were going off on the monitor, and it was saying happy anniversary and all sorts of things. That was really neat and totally unexpected.
That's very cool. And we'll end on that note because it's a high one. So thank you so much for being here and welcome back to the new year.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you guys, this has been the most incredible show. Thank you so much to our show sponsors. Gosh, look, there's so many, we can't even say them all, but we're so excited to celebrate the rest of the month with you for Black History Month and American Heart Month. And we have some more incredible guests next week as we do a precursor to Valentine's Day. Everyone have a great week and we'll see you here soon.